Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all today. So today is grain, friend, or foe. So what I find interesting is pretty much everything that's healthy and traditional is under attack. So the sun, salt, stress, and grains. I know we think of stress as a negative, but there's no life, there's no development without challenge. Our response to challenge is how we grow our life and how we develop. So stress is only a problem when it's too much. Same thing with the sun. We can't live without the sun. Getting sunburnt, of course, is not good. But the sun is under attack, and many people are afraid to go out in the sun without sunscreen. Salt is another big no-no. So at any rate, the interesting thing is, from the macrobiotic point of view, the common point of these four things is they're all yang. And not only are they all yang, they're essential for developing our health and our thinking ability and our self-reliance. Self-reliance is something that's disappearing. And that's partly, it's a fear of good quality yang things that make us active and things that challenge us. So macrobiotics is about finding the right balance. So at any rate, grains are one of those things that are under attack because they're yang in the sense of being in the center, the most central food. Now, when you hear the reporting about what's healthy, you hear eat your fruits, vegetables, and then sometimes they'll say grains and legumes. Sometimes they just say eat your fruits and veggies. I have nothing against fruits and veggies. I love them both. However, grains are the centerpiece of our diet and of our society. Grains are the beginning of recorded history, right? Modern history began with cereal grain cultivation. That allowed societies to develop. And over several thousand years, as grains were dispersed, then societies flourished and the individual areas all became unique. And as a result of that, all people are synonymous with the grain that they ate. In other words, you cannot separate rice from Asia. When you think of Asian food, you think of rice. You cannot separate bread from Europe. Many European villages, the bakery was the center of the village. You can't separate pasta from Italy. You can't separate corn from the Americas, oats from the UK, buckwheat from Russia. I was once speaking at a conference at Berlin when the wall just came down, the year the wall came down. And I was speaking on traditional diets. And I said buckwheat and millet are the traditional foods of Russia. And two Russian doctors came up and said, no, we disagree. That's not true. They said rye bread. Rye bread is the traditional food, the heart of Russia. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to argue, but rye bread, buckwheat, kasha, millet, etc. At any point, wherever you go in the world, then okay, Ethiopia, teff bread. So we cannot separate ourselves from our grains. That's who we are. That's our identity. That's our character. Everything about us. It's our connection to our ancestors. So grains are essential to all of life. Now, one of the big things, complaints about grains is phytic acid. Phytic acid or phytate, which is in the bran of all grains, beans, seeds, and nuts. And phytic acid has the ability to encapsulate heavy metal toxins and radiation, render them inert, and pass them out of the body. So phytic acid is very protective against environmental pollutants. However, the complaint is it's called an anti-nutrient because it interferes with the absorption of iron, zinc, and calcium. However, the question is, does it interfere enough with those minerals to impede our health? Well, the answer is no, it doesn't. Well, the research came from a group of people who ate about 80% grains, and they did have a problem with mineral absorption. But no one eats 80% grain. I mean, what do we eat? Even when we're eating 50 to 60%, except for short periods of time, we weren't having this high percentage of grain. So, in any case, if you eat the amounts of grain recommended in macrobiotics, phytate has benefit because it does two things. People who eat grains have stronger bones, and people who eat grains have stronger nervous systems. So if it really interfered with our mineral absorption, would those two things be true? Would we have stronger bones and stronger nervous systems, brain, thinking ability? No, it would be the opposite. Together with that, worldwide, rice-eating people have lower cancer than people who don't eat rice. So grains are a part of all the long-standing civilizations that have great health and great longevity. So grains have a benefit. Soaking, sprouting, and fermentation reduces the phytic acid. So for example, we soak brown rice. And I'll come back to brown rice later, how to get the most out of your grains. So I don't think phytic acid or phytate is an issue, it's harmful. I do think it's beneficial. It provides protection against cancer and environmental pollutions, which we're all exposed to. The whole world's exposed to radiation. The whole world's exposed to heavy metals. The whole world's exposed to plastics, etc. So grains are important for that. Why do we emphasize brown rice? Well, brown rice is unique among grains. Many people are afraid to eat brown rice because of arsenic. Rice has a tendency to uptake arsenic and cadmium from the soil. And this is a worldwide problem. It's important to choose rice from an area that's naturally low in arsenic, which means California rice. So in any case, if you're eating rice from the southern United States, I can't say whether it's a problem or not. It may be because these areas are cotton growing areas and they use arsenic-based pesticides for the cotton. So some of that soil might be high in arsenic. However, the absorption of arsenic is not so much from the soil, it's a bacterial issue. So a friend of mine, Jim Lyons, who's got a farm in New Jersey who grows dryland rice, wonderful rice, right? Blue Acres Farms, really wonderful rice. His rice is off the charts low in arsenic. And he's the one, he studied a lot about growing rice, and he discovered a way of growing and irrigating his rice that it just doesn't uptake arsenic, less than is in the soil. So a lot depends on how it's grown as well. At any rate, we eat California brown rice, which is naturally lower in arsenic. Is rice syrup a problem because you're concentrating it? Probably, but how much rice syrup do we eat? You know, it's a minor food, a couple tablespoons a week if we use it. So I don't think it's an issue. Now, what's so special about rice? Number one, it's the only grain that grows in water and on dry land, paralleling our development in the womb, in the amniotic sac, then the rest of our development in the air on dry land. Rice has the same. Second, rice is the only food you can eat every day, year in and year out, and never get tired of it. When we first started practicing macrobiotics, first few years, there was never enough brown rice to last the year. So there was always a 2 or 3 month period between harvests when we ran out of rice. At that time, then we tried eating buckwheat, We tried barley, we tried couscous, we tried everything under the sun. And everything's delicious and wonderful for a while, but you just miss rice. Rice is always delicious. Next, rice combines with every other food on the planet, and it combines well and it enhances the taste. You can cook rice with any other grain, barley rice, bulgur rice. You can cook rice with any bean, any seed, any nut. You can cook brown rice and vegetables. You can cook brown rice with fresh fruits or dried fruits. You can cook brown rice with salt or sugar. You can cook it with maple syrup or honey. You can cook brown rice with any herb or spice you can think of. You can cook it with meat, poultry, eggs, dairy, fish, shellfish. You get the point. I have not been able to think of a food on this planet that doesn't combine well with brown rice. No other grain can do that. Second, whatever you cook with brown rice cooks in the same time. Beans that take a longer time cook in the same time as brown rice. Everything aligns to brown rice. Brown rice combines with everything. So if you think about it, what type of value do we get by eating brown rice? Something that has that quality. That's how we're getting nourished day by day. Doesn't it enhance our ability to combine with all people, all thoughts, all ideas, similar or divergent? If you ask me, it does. It has that kind of ability. So it really, brown rice is unique, but all grains are unique. It's not the only one that's unique. Now, the next thing, so brown rice is unique, but every grain is unique. So as much as I love brown rice, I love all grains. What about gluten? Gluten is under attack. Once in a lecture, I was listening to Colin Campbell's lecture here in Philly, and someone asked him the question, is there any science against gluten? And he said, no. He actually threw the question to me. Yes, Denny, what are your thoughts about this? So I gave my thoughts, but I'm going to answer a little different now. Okay, for those in macrobiotics, we know about yin and yang, we know about 5 transformations, 5 changing stages of energy. So the gluten grains are all what we call tree nature energy. Barley, wheat, oats, and rye. Tree nature energy creates the liver and the gallbladder. Grains, because of their fiber and minerals, make our elimination more efficient. That's why when you eat grains, you go regularly. Grains make our ability to eliminate, to detoxify more efficient. So if we have a problem with our liver, then we get a reaction. Now, the point is, medicine at some point made symptoms synonymous with sickness. But symptoms are not synonymous with sickness. We create symptoms when we're getting sick, and we create symptoms when we're recovering our health. It goes in both directions. So if you change your diet, you stop animal foods, dairy foods, sugar, chemicals, and you start to eat healthy macrobiotic foods, a whole food, plant-based diet, you start to detoxify, you produce symptoms. Those symptoms show your body is reacting, it's adapting and returning to health. So if you eat a healthy food and it causes an uncomfortable symptom, is that good or bad, or positive or negative, beneficial or not? Well, it's beneficial, but it's uncomfortable. But everybody knows there's an unwritten law in society that thou shalt not be uncomfortable at any time for any reason. We don't like to be uncomfortable. However, to change, we have to be uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, it makes us uncomfortable. So why do so many people have an issue with gluten? Well, what's the modern diet? Poultry, dairy, eggs, tuna fish, and fructose. high fructose corn syrup, agave nectar, concentrated fruit sweeteners, tropical fruits. The combination, the worst food for our immune system, for our lymph system, the worst combination is dairy foods and fructose, especially made worse by poultry, eggs, dairy, and tuna, shellfish. In other words, what everyone is eating and bad quality oil. Now, the thing about fructose, why did I pick on fructose over sugar? Because every cell in your body runs on glucose, can metabolize glucose, but only your liver can metabolize fructose. So the modern diet, the combination is harming everybody's liver. That's why non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is becoming a rampant epidemic, right? Creating insulin sensitivity, right? So that we can't utilize insulin. So when you start to eat the gluten grains, then they start to stimulate your liver and you produce symptoms. That means many people have discomfort, but then they stop gluten, thinking gluten's unhealthy. Now, of course, there's unhealthy gluten. I'm not saying eat cakes and cookies and pastries and donuts, etc. Of course, but we're not talking about, pearled barley and pearled farro and bulgur wheat, or, Italian pasta or unyielded sourdough bread, which is healthy gluten. So these foods are actually helping our liver. And then recently I discovered something really interesting. George Osawa fashioned macrobiotic food after Japanese temple cooking, Shojin Ryori, which was vegan cooking. And because Japanese monks had a history and reputation for health and vitality, and there were also a lot more warriors. They were strong, vital people, and they could fight. They ran marathons. They did all kinds of things. And they were vegan. However, what was a regular part of their diet? Fu and seitan, in other words, concentrated wheat gluten products, boiled and baked wheat gluten. So the gluten is the most yin part of the wheat, the most yin protein. We know in macrobiotics, yin attracts yang and yang attracts yin. That means yin is a sponge. It's a magnet for yang. So you can take gluten and make it more strengthening than meat. That's what they did. Through understanding of yin and yang, they use gluten. But another thing about gluten is gluten activates your immune system, makes your body clean itself more efficiently. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a problem with healthy gluten, little by little, reintroduce it, because not only is it enjoyable, not only does it make macrobiotic practice more satisfying, which is a very important part of it, it makes it healthier, because the gluten grains are higher in protein. They're more relaxing. They're more satisfying. So everybody needs and benefits from good quality gluten. The easiest way to reintroduce it is cook rice together with pearled barley or pearled farro, a little bit, and little by little increase it so you can develop gluten. Corn is almost totally destroyed because of GMOs, but polenta, so if you can find non-GMO sweet corn, that's still wonderful. And polenta is good for everyone. Polenta is an absolute wonderful food, and it's easy to find organic, non-GMO polenta. So that's one. So now, what's unique about zero grains? Number one, grain is the seed and the fruit merged into one without any separation. The seed and fruit merged into one without any separation. That means it's the beginning and the end of the plant kingdom combined into one. When you eat grain, you're eating the entire plant kingdom in one food with every meal. That's why it's our centerpiece. Together with that, grain is the only food that has the exact ratio of major nutrients that we need. That means minerals to proteins to carbohydrates, approximately 1 to 7. It's the only food. The next closest food is beans. Out of all beans, the zucchini beans are the closest to grains in that proportion. One of the reasons they were the most valued beans. But it's the only food on the planet that has that ratio, 1 to 7, approximately, minerals to proteins to carbohydrates. So it provides balanced and complete nutrition. Together with that, grains, which are complex carbohydrates, break down slowly through digestion and release even nourishment, even nutrition. So they give us smooth, enduring, long-lasting energy and moods, right? So many people report to me, I say, and I said, do you feel better? And they say, yes. In what ways? I feel more calm. I feel more peaceful. I feel more energetic. And I hear these things all the time because grains have this even energy. The vegetable is the parts in between the seed and the fruit, the root, the stem, and leaf. Take a seed, sprout it, the root grows down, the leaf grows up. If you let it go, it goes to fruit, seed and fruit. So grains and vegetables at every meal represent the entire plant kingdom merged into one. It's the basis of a healthy, satisfying plant-based diet. Together with that, grains have fiber. Fiber, number one, keeps us regular. So I heard on the radio this morning, people who eat a plant-based diet have bigger poops, about twice the size of meat eaters, and toot far more, many times more than meat eaters, which people are always saying, what do I do? Eat beans. They make me toot. That's the word they use on the radio. I like that. So at any rate, it's unavoidable, but it's actually a sign of health. So because those things do produce some gas, and just smile and excuse yourself. But what can you do? But at any rate, so the fiber is cleaning out and activating the peristaltic action in your digestive system. So it's transporting everything through at a good time. Whatever you eat with grain, whatever's unhealthy, grain transports it through evenly. So it has the least harm, even if it's an unhealthy food. Then together with that, the fiber is binding with cholesterol and toxins and carrying them out of the body. So it's keeping your digestive system clean and healthy and detoxifying at the same time. Now, we know Oriental medicine is known for 5,000 years, but science is catching up. Now we have two brains. One is here and the other is in our gut. And the one in our gut controls this one. Our health, our immunity, our moods, our thinking, everything is controlled by that. So any food that cleans out, renews our digestive system, wouldn't it be doing the same thing to our brain? Carrying out unwanted, unneeded things, getting rid of the waste and the cobwebs? Well, I think it does. So grains stabilize our energy, they stabilize blood sugar, they promote health and longevity, and they make us feel satisfied more than any other food. Now, in macrobiotics, there was an emphasis, and I think an overemphasis on brown rice. So we recommend, Susan and I recommend, cook brown rice with other grains, always soak it, which does minimize the phytic acid. Cook it in the soaking water, because when you soak rice, it prepares the sprout. It releases nutrients that weren't there before into the water. So soak the rice overnight or longer, cook it in the soaking water, and always cook it in another grain. It's enhancement, and this is literal. If you cook brown rice with barley, you get more nourishment from the brown rice and more nourishment from the barley than if you would eat either one separately. People think they're losing by cooking brown rice with another grain, but they're not. They're actually gaining. So I think there is still an overemphasis in the quantity and the regularity So when I started in macrobiotics, we ate rice 2 or 3 times a day, and it was encouraged to eat as much grain as possible. So I always ate 50 to 60% grains, sometimes more. I don't recommend that. Somewhere between 20 and 30%. But I think to move forward to the future, we need to honor the world's grains. Each civilization had their grain. Grain is ancestral memory. That means the way to unify people and understand all people is eat all grains. Brown rice, barley, millet, wheat, rye, oats, and corn. Buckwheat is a wild grass, but used as a grain. Hatamugi was a wild grass used as a grain. Quinoa the same, teff the same. So whether it's a wild grass or a tradition, a grain or a traditional wild grass, use a combination and a variety and try to enjoy and incorporate the world's grains into your diet. So grains are our greatest friend and ally, as is the sun, as is salt, right? As is stress. Knowing what our capacity is, how to use stress, it's how to use challenge to grow our life and keep ourselves strong. Now, in November, we have a full online conference. I'm sure Tehran's going to talk about that, but I asked Larry Kushi, Micho's son, who's a scientist, doctor of science. There's a big movement among many MDs and researchers who I greatly, greatly respect and who are friendly to macrobiotics. But they talk about no SOS, no salt, oil, or sugar. Sugar, of course, we all agree with. But salt and oil are traditional. And macrobiotics honors and follows tradition, combines it with science. My experience is that oil and salt, used properly, are greatly beneficial. So I've asked Larry Kushi to talk about his research, his understanding of the science behind those foods, so we can get a balanced perspective and decide for ourselves. Because it's very disorienting for people to hear, oh, is oil bad? Should I avoid oil? Is salt bad? Should I avoid salt? No, it depends on the quality and quantity, like everything else. So we have a lot of great subjects. And in October, we have our first on-site in 2 years in Haverford, PA, and we're reintroducing the power of foods, which I think is one of our most important seminars. We haven't done it in years. It's really my life's research study. And some of these ideas presented today, we greatly expand on them about everything, about getting the most out of your food in enjoyment and health, nutrition, energy, all of those things. And finally, before I open up to questions, the ultimate guide to eating for longevity. I wrote this book to bring us back to health, reintroduce people to healthy eating, healthy living, and the most delicious healthy cooking, to promote the idea that the healthiest food is, in fact, the most delicious. It's important for these ideas to begin to spread. Okay? So we're at a changing time in history. A lot of stranger things are going on, but a lot of wonderful things just beginning to germinate. Very good. Thank you very much. Happy to answer your questions if I can.
All right. Thank you, Denny, for that very insightful discussion. Thank you. Just as he said, we're going to move into our Q&A segment. About 10 or 15 minutes or so, we'll take some live questions. I'm going to take a look, as I mentioned, of course, in the Facebook Live, but I'm also going to start here with the Zoom. So if you have a question directly, you can either send it in the chat function, as I see an individual has already done so. I'm just going to write hello here so you know where you can send those questions. You can also, at this time, unmute yourself, but I ask that you wait just to be called upon, and then we can ask your question verbally if you would like that as well too. So our first question is a question, okay, they want to ask about soaking rice, Denny. So soaking rice, if you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
So we wash our rice and then soak it for overnight or longer. according to Japanese research, the nutrition in rice increases hour by hour up to 23 hours. So Susan always soaks the rice at night after dinner and then cooks it the next day, sometime before dinner. It's sometime less than 24 hours. And we always cook it with another grain, mainly boiled, with a pinch of sea salt or a half-inch square piece of kombu.
Can I ask I'm the one that asked that question. Can I ask a
Sure.
question about it?
Sure.
So it's interesting because I really haven't been soaking it. I don't know why. I guess I never really thought about that. But when you mix the rice with another grain, I think you had once mentioned to me it's 3/4 brown rice and 1/4 the other grain. Is that correct? Okay.
Or 2-to-1, 2-to-1 or 3-to-1.
Okay.
Either way,
Okay.
or 1-to-1. So the other grain, like if it's pearl barley or farro, you don't have to soak it, or millet. Those you don't have to soak. Hato mugi, you need to soak.
Okay. So just add that other grain after the rice has been soaked. Okay. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Our next question, we can't get the Coda Brother Farms rice in a scene. Any suggestions as to where we can get Coda Farm brown rice, please?
I wish I did. Rose Coda, for a while, was shipping rice to my clients. However, she's now taking care of her elderly mother in the 90s, in her 90s, and she's just not able to do it anymore. And so she referred me to 2 stores on the West Coast that sell it, but the price is prohibitive. It's so expensive. And then shipping it east. At some point, I wish, I could make it available. If we ever have a physical space, then I'll sell specialty macrobiotic foods, including Coda rice. But for right now, I don't have an answer. You've messed up their relationship with them, so unfortunately.
All right, thank you. Let's see, do you soak the beans separated or separate from the rice?
I believe so, except for azuki beans.
Okay, thank you.
So, Susan does a support group Tuesday afternoon. These things are her expertise, far more than me. I'm a casual hobbyist cooker. So I'm a professional eater.
Dina, did you have a question?
That was about the rice. It was about the rice. So Essene is not getting the rice because of a relationship issue, is not because Coda cannot ship to them anymore?
No, it's very unfortunate.
Can they ship to you, Denny, and you can sell it to
I
your
can't.
home?
I can't.
It's not so, it doesn't take so much space.
Well, yeah, no. You need a walk-in. You need a huge. You have to buy a half pallet of rice. It's a lot of rice. No, there's no way. I don't have a warehouse. If I had a space to sell it, then I could get it to sell, but I don't. So I don't know any way to get it.
Can
to
you
people.
buy it and channel it to Essene?
No, believe me, if there was a way, I pushed the scene, I pushed, and I investigated, and I discovered the reason they don't have it anymore. It's not because of Coda. Well, it is now, but
So they're not going to have it in the future either.
no, they're not going to have it. Unfortunately, no, they will not.
And no one else on the East Coast is carrying it.
Not as far as I know. Dean and DeLuca used to sell 1-pound boxes of it, but I don't know if they still do. You could check.
Dean and DeLuca in Philadelphia.
Oh, in New York, Dean and DeLuca in New York, they used to sell 1-pound boxes for $5 a box. Quite expensive.
Yeah. So, okay, so if we can't do the Coda Farm, what should we use?
At Lundberg, and if you can find the golden rose, that's the best, better than the short grain. But It's not
Golden
easy.
Rose by
Golden
Lundberg?
Lundberg, yeah,
Golden Rose.
yeah.
Okay. And I don't think I've ever seen it.
There's a store in LA that sells Coda rice, but then again, it's the shipping. If you know someone in LA or in San Diego, they can buy it, but it costs you a fortune to ship it.
All right, thank you. So the October retreat is happening?
Oh, yes,
It is happening.
unless something unforeseen happens between now and then, but yes, it's scheduled and we're registering.
You having people signed up?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
do.
yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Thank
So
you.
space is
Thank you.
limited if we're intending.
I know, I know,
Sooner is better than later.
I know. I was just wasn't sure whether it's happening or not because of the numbers now with the COVID are going up, etc. I'm not sure.
Yes, the event is still taking place, and as Denny mentioned, it's very, very limited, as you are aware. So we do have a number of people who've already registered and are continuing to register. So I'll mention some more details about that as we wrap up for those who are still interested in that, just so there's some insight. Let's
Okay,
see.
thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Let's see. And as a reminder, yes, this webinar will be recorded for those who were not able to tune in from the beginning. Let's see. So we have another question here. Okay, whenever a crisis comes up, such as this flood, I get all out of cooking thinking mode and solve problems mode or problem solving mode. Any advice? Super simple. Thanks. Denny.
I'm not sure, just to keep on track. I mean, I don't know. For me, just certain things are carved in stone, things I just do every day, no matter what. But you know, life gets in the way sometimes. But no, I don't really have a suggestion for that. It's better. We can always concentrate on the things that within our reach that we can do. That's always best.
Okay, thank you. I have a question here from the Facebook Live. They ask, what volume of grain would be considered a serving size?
Generally, a half to 1 cup. So the more dense something is, the smaller the serving. So like tempeh, it's very dense. Seitan is very dense. A cup of seitan or tempeh, that's a lot. So a smaller amount. Rice is more dense than bulgur, let's say. So you'd have a smaller serving, but somewhere generally a half to 1 cup.
All right, thank you. Let's see, what do we have here? Rice and other grains are considered high in carbs. Why do the doctors ask you to limit the carbs to avoid getting diabetes?
That is a complete misunderstanding. Grain-eating people worldwide don't have diabetes. They're thin, they're always trim. So back in 1955, Harvard School of Nutrition, together with USDA, created the basic four. And grains, the most important food on the planet, were demoted to starches. They were all bunched together. Whole grains, cracked grains, high quality flour products like traditional pasta and onion sourdough bread, together with white bread, Wonder Bread and donuts. So they're all, and potatoes, they demoted grains and created starches, which created endless confusion. So grains stabilize blood sugar. The diabetes epidemic is caused by animal foods. What's the thing that has risen so much? All the meat, chicken, eggs, dairy, all that. That's the base cause. It's a lack. Diabetes means starved for complex carbohydrates. So I have a thing. I started this a long time ago. Whatever they say, I just say not. Whatever it is, just the opposite. Now, that might sound a bit strange and facetious, but it's accurate most of the time. Not all the time, but it's usually accurate. So when they say carbohydrates cause diabetes, just say not true. Brown rice, millet, beans, barley, oatmeal, that's the cure for diabetes. Recovery, we don't use the word cure, recovery.
All right, thank you. So we maybe have a little bit of time for a few more questions. Another question from the Facebook Live. How many meals a day should we eat grain?
Well, our point of view is grain is the basis, the centerpiece of every meal. And we recommend keep grains and vegetables about equal. So the answer is grains and vegetables, a relatively equal proportion or more vegetables and grains at every meal. And we recommend 3 meals a day or 2, because I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. The best health comes you eat and your digestive system expands. You're active for several hours and it contracts. Then you eat and it expands and then it contracts. If you have frequent meals, you never get to contracting. Our digestive system moves by peristaltic action, wave-like, expanding and contracting. So 2 or 3 meals activate our digestive process. And the better our health, the more stable our energy. We do better with 2 or 3 meals. So, and then also meal times are very important. The 2 most important things in meal times, if you eat breakfast, start by 8:30 a.m. Lunch is the one meal carved in stone, the most important meal, not breakfast, lunch. Start at no later than 1 o'clock, don't skip it. If you just follow those guidelines, it'll have a dramatic effect on your health.
All right, thank you. Our next question from the Facebook Live, glad there's a lot of participation going on there. If you are having fish, do you have grain with that meal also?
Yes, we have grain with every meal, plus fish and beans you can have at the same meal or the same dish. Some people say, well, didn't have beans because I had fish. They're different categories of food. We have beans pretty much every day. You can have fish and beans at the same meal, or tofu for that matter, or beans and fish combined very well together. You can cook them together. There's many traditional recipes that are combining grains and beans, but so it's basically, fish protein and plant protein actually harmonize, complement each other. It's a good combination.
All right, thank you. All right, another question from Facebook. And as just a reminder, if anyone does have a question still while you're live on Zoom, you can either send it directly to the chat, or as I mentioned, you can unmute yourself and then I'll call upon you. We have about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, so we probably will only allow a couple more after this question. So Denny, what is your take on teff?
Teff again is wonderful. I mean, it's a wonderful grain, very satisfying, and all the traditional grains and wild grasses. So quinoa, amaranth, teff, buckwheat, they're all very, very valuable, enjoyable, healthy foods. And again, I think best thing, grains can cover the entire growing spectrum from the tropics up to the beginning of Lapland. So grains can be consumed anywhere on the planet, and all the world's grains are wonderful for everyone.
Okay, thank you. So I have 2 more questions I'm going to take directly from the Facebook Live, and I believe those will be our final questions as I do not see anything else here on Zoom. So the first one, Denny, is there any place for white rice in the diet? If so, how often?
Yes, if your health's generally okay, white rice is wonderful. Of course, day to day, brown rice is better, but white rice is good for enjoyment. It depends on what you're doing. If you eat fish, white rice combines with fish better, I think, by my taste, than brown rice. But I mean, you can have it a few times a week if you like. it's okay, or once or twice, or you don't have to have it either way.
All right, thank you. And picking back up on the conversation about fish, this one question, another one from our Facebook Live. Micho told me there is no need to eat any animal products. So why do macros still eat fish? It is inhumane and not needed for health.
Well, macrobiotics is about choice. And a lot of macrobiotic people choose to be vegan and others don't. So macrobiotics also includes foods for enjoyment. So if you're against fish, by all means, avoid fish, as it goes with animal and dairy foods. But macrobiotics is about learning how to make healthy choices for our own life. So we don't exclude fish, but it's fine to go without it. Plenty of my clients are completely vegan. I'm not, but at some point, I most likely will be. So when I'm ready to
Why?
move on, I will definitely become vegan.
All right, good night, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Good night. Thank you.